So I'm here today with Liz Pappas and Lena Schmidt, two of my favorite people to talk about this topic with, taking some time for mindfulness and resetting for success in the new year. And I think we could all agree, the three of us, that when we were planning this conversation, there was so much more that we wanted to say, so much more that we wanted to include. But what we're doing is we are thinking about the three things that mean the most to us that have helped us. And what we know, the three of us as educators, that this has been, 2020 has been the most difficult year for teachers in recollection, certainly in my lifetime. And because there were so many changes and these changes were unpredictable, they were so hard to navigate. It was also really hard to see, the fruits of our labor, so to speak, where we weren't as close to students as we usually are, or as collaborative with colleagues as we usually are. And many times we know that students were not able to show up for whatever reason. And we were seeing things like kids that we know could make it, could succeed, and having trouble. And we wanted to make sure that in some way we took this time at the end of 2020 and acknowledged the courage and the resilience it takes to be an educator right now, and also to share the things that we have been doing. As you know, we're all educators in different sorts of ways, but the things that we've been doing to be successful, and the way we define success is being able to show up the best that we can for our students. We know that it might not be polished and pretty and sparkly, but we also know that by showing up and building resilience, we are doing the hard work. So we wanted to get together and talk about the things that have worked for us, and that we're hoping other educators might incorporate into their lives to build that resilience and feeling like they're resetting in 2021. And so by way of introduction, I'm going to start by introducing Liz, who first and foremost, I would like to say is a treasured friend of mine, and also a person in my life that has helped me be more resilient. Lena as well. And Liz introduced me to Lena to help me continue the practices that help me show up every day the best that I can. Liz teaches at UCSD. She's a consultant nationally, and she's also, I would consider, an expert, not only practitioner, but just also knowledgeable around social emotional learning, which is really what we can all draw upon as grown-ups and as students right now. So Liz and Lena, thank you for being here with me. And I know, Liz, you were going to introduce Lena.
Thanks, Patty. There's so much that I want to say back to you, and just thank you for creating this space. And I also treasure you for a million reasons. I get to introduce Lena, and I'm super honored to share Lena Schmidt with you and with everybody who's listening. Lena has been, cultivating social justice, and she's been cultivating a sense of well-being and helping me. She's a catalyst to me, and she's been helping me to manage my worry, my outrage, my overwhelm, share my joys. And she does this as a yoga teacher, and I've been practicing for a few years under Lena's wings. Her experiences are super grounding and expansive and personal. And in addition to yoga, in addition to teaching classes, she also has immersions that she provides and retreats. And I've pretty much done every one that I absolutely can. And I still want to do Costa Rica and Italy and all those things that you may have planned in the future. she also is part of something that's new in our yoga community, and it's a yoga and social justice discussion group, which is just totally this melding of ideas that are really doable and really build a lot of perspective. In addition to that world, Lena works at UCSD too. And so we have these, like our triple Venn diagram, overlaps. And she works in the UCSD in the program of Dimensions of Culture, where she gets to work with undergrads and help them fully engage in social justice and inclusion. So Lena is just one of those just all around wholehearted powerhouse epitome of responsiveness guides. So welcome, Lena. I love you, and I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Liz. I'm so excited to be here with both of you. So since we're going to be talking about resetting and grounding, let's start by doing a little bit of that. So if you are watching from home and you have a little bit of space and time, you can join us. Just find any comfortable seat. I'm sitting in a comfy chair. And this is something that you can do to practice mindfulness for yourself. This is something you could do before you're teaching or before you're going to bed. This can be part of your life. And mindfulness is really just present moment awareness without any judgment. It's allowing what is to be what is, like my dog drinking water right now that you can probably hear. So I'm mindfully aware of that as we engage together. So find your comfortable seat, whatever that looks like for you, and start with a reset breath, just a clearing breath. Big breath in through your nose, and then an open mouth exhale. Good. And then start by looking around your space and notice 5 things that you can see. You might see a pen, you might see a chair. What else do you see? And then come back and make note of 4 things that you can touch. And you can go ahead and touch them if you want. Might be your own knee or your paper. Good. And then come back and perk up your ears. Notice 3 things that you can hear. What can you hear? An animal in your space, another human in your space. Good. And then turning to our sense of smell, notice 2 things that you can smell. And you might even take a bigger breath in. And then finally, 1 thing that you can taste. And you can move your tongue around in your mouth. And then we'll close with another reset, grounding breath. Inhale. Exhale, let it go. And just notice how you feel now. You might feel vastly different than just 30 seconds or so ago. You might feel exactly the same. And again, this is something that you can do for yourself, but also something you could do with students of any age. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Tuning in with senses is just a grounding mindfulness practice. And it's a nice way to reset. And speaking of resetting, in a year that has been entirely unsettling, Liz and I are going to chat today about 3 practical things that have helped us reset a lot of times over and over and over this year. And Liz is my treasured friend, and we've shared a lot of these over text and calls. So we're going to talk about reflective questions, whether we journal about them or meditate on them or think about them while we walk. We're going to talk about turning to the words of others, and we're going to talk about breathing. And as you're watching at home, just notice how you might take in any of these ideas and incorporate them in any way into your life or into your education, teaching. So Liz, let's start by chatting about reflective questions.
Yeah, I think about reflection and just reflective prompts, and how they really have helped me to pause and nourish and gather strength up when I'm dealing with challenges. And the questions give me time, and I like to do a lot of writing, but I also do a lot of contemplation when I'm walking, or sometimes when I'm, just meandering with my thoughts. And the reflective questions have really given me clarity on my core desired feelings, my core desired values, and discovering those through reflective writing has been like a compass for me in my life. And recently I took a 7-session restorative practice with you, Lena, that helps me just be more conscious about nourishment. And so did Patty. And one of the quotes that that was shared that really stuck with me, or one of the prompts that you shared, is darkness teaches me. And that one I latched onto, and then I started rewording it like I think we all should give ourselves permission to do. Is like, you get a prompt, you get a question, and maybe it doesn't resonate with how it's been stated. So I started doing some writing around that prompt, and I came up with some of this: that challenges really teach me about my own emotional resilience, that instead of focusing on the hard things that are happening, I'm finding those little like sprouts of growth. Even if they're small, they feel mighty, and they're helping me to start to accept the frustration that I feel, just like most educators right now. Maybe I'm speaking too broadly, but I'm feeling a sense of inadequacy. I don't feel as effective as I normally am when I'm able to connect in person. And that those challenges, the struggle is teaching me to start naming my own negative self-talk that goes in. I have this kind of rumination that can take hold. And so writing about that has really helped me. And name it, and I'm starting to talk back with more self-compassion. So that's been a really big adjustment for me. And I realized that doing these hard things, teaching online, trying to build connection via Zoom, I'm starting to find glimpses of empowering stories about myself, and I notice it in others. So I feel like I'm, just finding these small moments during this life on the planet right now. And I also think, just thinking about my own classroom practice and the teachers that I work with, that providing students opportunities to reflect, it builds that social emotional competency of self-awareness. It builds that and cultivates a growth mindset, which I think we wholeheartedly embrace as educators. So I'm curious if you have a prompt that's been sticking with you, or that you've delved into lately. Anything meaningful for you, Nina?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing all that, Liz. We've all been through a lot of challenge this year, and it's so inspiring to hear you talk about just how such a small prompt can actually really empower us to find silver linings. So thank you for sharing that. I love prompts. So I like this prompt, thinking about what prompts have inspired me. And I journal most days. Some days it's just free writing. Some days a poem comes out. Some days I do look for a prompt. And one meaningful prompt that has guided me this, the last several months is, what do I need to make it through this season? And so for me, that's been helpful to think about, not only in terms of what actual season is it, thinking about seasons in terms of, this is a hard season right now. And for me, it's kind of felt like a really long autumn or a really long winter. And even when it was summertime in California. So really tuning in with, what does my body need? What does my heart need? What does my community need to feel supported during this season? And that could be day to day. Rumi reminds us in the poem that life is like a guest house, every day a new arrival. And so really tuning in with, what do I need to make it through this season? survive, thrive, has helped me nourish my body, take baths and bake and take naps. Things that help me in the actual winter time have helped me rest and restore and be ready to show up during this challenging season. And that framework for me works well because it reminds me that seasons end, that seasons change. Thank goodness spring comes. So even if, like me, if for you this has been feeling like a really long winter, just remember that below the surface, spring is coming. Yeah. So what do I need to make it through this season has been helpful for me. And I just wanted to share, I'm looking at my notes here, some of the things that have helped me make it through this season is finding the silver lining. So maybe you love winter. For me, winter is one of the most challenging times. I'm like a summer girl. I like feeling free and warm, and winter for me is the opposite of that. And so I've turned to what Liz often reminds me of is the practice of gratitude. How can I find something that I'm grateful for about winter? Okay, it allows me to stay in. It allows me more time to read books, to snuggle with my dog, to connect with friends in creative ways rather than in person. So finding the silver lining has helped me feel resilient.
Yesterday, I got a text from Sarah Raycraft, who is the president of Benchmark Education, and she texted me. It was a little bit of a typo, and she wrote, "I kiss my life." And then, of course, she goes back to the text and she said, "I miss my life." And we both agreed that we both miss our life, like we're wintering, right? But we also kiss our life, that right now we can find the silver linings.
I love that. Kiss my life.
Yes.
It sounds like a potential children's literature book in the
Right.
making. Yeah.
And words from others, like that's what that was for me. That, little typo was like reminded me of how words from others also help me during this time.
Yeah. So when we've talked about reflective questioning, and now as we delve into turning to words of others, immediately I think of authors that have really influenced me. And there's not like a specific book that is my wow book, but it's more about authors. And authors and podcasts have become just part of my daily sacred routine. I slow down, I find meaning. I love that there's worlds and words. I feel more fully engaged when I take time to pause and dig in and reflect. And Glennon Doyle has taught me about just that mantra of I can do hard things, we can do hard things. And Elizabeth Gilbert, this is one of her books, Big Magic. She has a passage in here about fear, and that fear can join us in our car rides, but put fear in the back seat and don't let fear take the steering wheel and have control over the music. And another book, I know, Lena, these are all books that we have like adored, and I think I want to reread everything now. But The Gifts of Imperfection and Brene Brown's work has helped me to show up, which is one of our through lines today, and be vulnerable and have that courage to build connection and trust. Cheryl Strayed has written, a variety of books and just talks about like miraculous, ordinary things that I love. I love that idea of things being small and mighty. And then an educator that's been super impactful in my life, and I'm in an Onward book club, is Elena Aguilar. And she's written about the emotional resilience of educators and how to establish that and nurture that, cultivate that over the course of 12 months. So those are some people that are impacting my life on a daily basis. And children's literature too. I don't know if this is a book that people are familiar with. It's pretty popular right now, and The People Stayed Home. These books that when we touch, like where you hold your heart, or just the way you hold a book, that it's sacred. So I turn to the world of children's literature, to my authors, and I turn to my friends that I trust and that bring out the best in me. And where I'm really building a meaningful, mutual, conscious conversation with, friends and educators. One quote that stuck out to me, I don't remember if it was from a webinar or where I found this quote, but it's by Sue Monk Kidd. We are all worn out by the multiple pandemics upending our personal and collective lives. But there are cracks appearing in the painful parts of our culture where new light is coming through. And for me, just being able to sit with someone and unpack that and find out what that means and see that, what inspires you, and see life and, tweaking like different prisms has been so meaningful, fulfilling. It's huge. I know, Lena, that these are authors that we share. But what have you been drawing on for your inspiration lately?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You're totally right. Those are some of the exact same ones that I have been turning to, and I've very intentionally sought out inspiration during this time. And I always do. We always do. You and I have been fans of Brene Brown's work for years, and her podcast, and Elizabeth Gilbert's words, and Glennon Doyle's words, Cheryl Strayed. All of those have been kind of guides for me as well during this time. And I've also sought out listening. I know you listen as well, but listening to other people's voices has been really, really grounding, but really, I'm trying to think of another word for that, just like a balm during this time. And so lots and lots and lots of podcasts about a lot of different things. And I've actively looked for TED Talks about motivation and education and how to show up, because other people's ideas are really helpful for me. I've also watched a lot of movies, listened to other people's words in music. And surprisingly, poetry has been something that I've turned to more during this time than I ever have during my life. And so in addition to all those same books that I would show that you have, I'm just going to show these books. So you showed a book called Onward, and I'm showing a book called Inward. This is a wonderful poetry book by Young Pueblo. And this is a book by Maggie Smith, another poet a friend gave to me, and it's Notes on Loss, Creativity, and Change. And it's just during this time, like short little passages have reminded me that you can arrange words in lots of creative ways, and they can be really effective and impactful. And then Stacey Ann Chin, awesome spoken word poet, published our first collection of poetry. It's like 20 years worth of amazing poems. So Crossfire, Stacey Ann Chin, is my latest poetry interest. And, all of these words have been really helpful for me, along with words in texts from friends or phone calls with friends and family. Like, we're looking outward to words of others who inspire us as a community and a collective, but also those daily check-ins with friends, and just those small community connections have a big impact on us all. And these are words that I take from my own life, but also I incorporate into my yoga classes. I try to weave them in as themes, or I share them at the beginning and the end. And with my freshman college students, I try to offer them little bites of inspiration that have helped me manage my life, and so hopefully is a gift to them as well. Yeah.
It reminds me, both of you wrote handwritten notes to me in the mail, and that was also just another like major lift of seeing handwriting, and that it felt like really personal. So we have our reflective questioning and prompting, our turning to the words of others in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. And then we have our final practical, doable idea is paying attention to our breath. And this is another, breath work has been something that is really impacting my life on a daily basis and the way that I show up. Just being able to concentrate on the quality of my breath is reducing my feelings of stress. And it's also at the same time beginning to create more feelings of expansiveness, a sense of calm, more clarity. And I think I'm starting to understand the concept of equanimity because of breath. So it's helping, breath work has really helped to soften my times where I'm feeling friction and barriers with my mental or physical or emotional kind of blocks. You know, I'm a mom, I have an almost 20-year-old and 17-year-old. I work in lots of different capacities. Life on the planet has been, you know, bringing up a big wide range of emotions, and the breath is helping me connect to myself, bring my best self forward, increase my awareness about myself and about others, because I notice when I calm myself down that there is a ripple effect. When I work with learners of all ages, I notice my breath when I'm first starting. I invite everyone to take a deep breath. And in the beginning with my college classes, my students will be a little bit hesitant. And then by, you know, a couple weeks in, if I forget to do something that calms them, they remind me, and or we'll do like a private chat. So just inviting people to hold space with those even inhales and exhales, and just a consciousness of breath has been really helpful for me.
There
How about
was a video, I don't know if you all saw it. I saw it today. It went viral. It was a teacher in China about to walk into a classroom, and they caught it on video. He had his mask down here, and before he walked in, he took a deep breath, put a smile on his face, and then went into the classroom.
Isn't that how this year has been for those of us who hold space in any capacity?
Mm-hmm.
That tending to the self has been just essential, no joke. And the more that we take deep, full breaths, the actual physical capacity we have to hold space increases, right? And we can calm our minds. I love that you do that with your students, Liz. So of course I teach breath practices in my yoga classes. It's an intentional place and people come wanting to breathe and slow down. But I too have integrated some grounding breath work into my freshman college classes, and the students do ask for it and they do want it. And it's just 1 minute, usually 1 or 1.5 minutes at the beginning of our time together, and they report back that they feel relaxed, more relaxed, and that they're able to focus better. So that's wonderful. That's awesome. And again, I practice yoga and I do intentional breath work in yoga classes, but I also am aware of my breath when I'm hiking. I love to hike and get outside, or when I do a cold plunge, like if I jump in the ocean or take a quick cold shower, that big inhale, that's really effective and can help our brains turn on. So would you like to close with a breath practice? We can do one together. Okay. So if you are practicing this at home, again, find a comfortable seat and know that this is something that you can do for yourself at any time, but is also another thing that you can offer for your students as a transition or before class or even towards the end of a class. So this is called a 3-part breath. And if you want, you could place one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest, just so you can actually feel your breath. Otherwise, any way you want to put your hands is just fine. Let's do a regular breath in and a full breath out. As you inhale, feel your abdomen expand, and then pause. You're inhaling about 1/3 of the way. And then inhale, your ribs expand 2/3 of the way, and then feel your chest expand all the way full. Pause your breath for a moment, hold it, And then a complete exhale, let it all go. We'll do that again. Inhale, just a third of the way, belly expands, hold. Then another third of the way, ribs expand, hold. And then the final third, chest expands. If you have any more space, sip in a little more air, like you're drinking through an eco-friendly straw. And let it all go. We'll do 2 more rounds just like that. Inhale, belly, ribs, chest, fill all the way up. Let it go. One more time. Eyes can be open or closed. Inhale, belly. Inhale, ribs. Inhale, chest. Fill all the way up. Sip in a little bit more. And release. And then you can release your hands. Thank you.
Thank you both. Oh my goodness. I think this is one of those conversations that I'm going to put on repeat and either go through again and again. So I have 3 things that I can go back to. Those 3 things of thinking about just reflective questions, and those questions that especially the fact that you offered us some of the more difficult reflective questions. I appreciate that so much, because it's like, what are the challenges? What am I learning from the darkness? What do I need in this season, whether it's a day, a true season on earth, or just this part of the school year. We're not looking away from the hard parts. We're not sugarcoating them. We are facing them, and we're doing so with mindfulness, with that presence. And then, knowing that others have done this work, we're not in this alone. So turning to the words of others and taking on those words. You all share different people and different resources. It's all very specialized to each person. Whose words are going to resonate the most, but I want to double underline every single name you brought up, because they've been really special to me as well. And then I also have to say that I was so surprised what a difference taking and pausing just for a couple of minutes. I think what we just did was less than 2 minutes, and concentrating on breath and what that does for all of the tension and all of the hard parts that are around us, but help us be really present. It's free. We don't need anybody to help us with that. We simply need to just pause and go to that. And so, Liz and Lena, thank you so much for reminding us all, reminding educators that they can be successful simply by showing up the best that they can. And these are 3 ways that will help them do that. We appreciate your wisdom.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.